Hello, and thank you all so much for being here. I believe Zoom should give you an alert that this meeting is being recorded, but I will mention that just in case. Please feel free to turn off your video if you would prefer, and I will be keeping everyone muted through the presentation part of this webinar. If you would like to ask questions as you think of them, go ahead and type them in the chat, and I will open that up and answer as many of them as I can in order when we get to the Q&A portion. Before that, I will be going into a little more depth about who I am and what I do, some last tips and pointers for your macro self-editing, and explaining how you can get 25% off when you book any of my services, so stay tuned. I hope you have all been able to follow along with the video series so far and found it helpful in learning how to self-edit to get the most out of a developmental edit, or have at least found something to improve whatever process you've already been doing. I know it is a topic that you can find 10 different answers on if you ask 10 different people, but there have been common themes emerging over the 30 plus books that I have professionally developmentally edited over the last couple of years, so I hope that there was something in there for everyone. Let me introduce myself a little bit more than I have in the recorded videos. My name is Rebecca, and I am a lifelong story nerd. I was unschooled up through high school, so reading has always been a huge part of my self-education and is to this day. I started writing when I was about 11. I wrote a play and wrote a little bit here and there, but really got serious about it in my early 20s when I moved here to Maine. I am now a proud indie author with 4 self-published books. I realized halfway through writing my first full-length novel that I would need more objective outsider feedback than I'd ever previously received on my writing if I wanted it to be good enough to sell, which was my goal. And because of that, I ended up becoming very active in a couple of beta reader groups and critique partner swap groups, even before I'd finished that first novel. These days, I run my own fantasy critique partners group, which has been a true joy and which allowed me to gain so much valuable experience around providing developmental feedback to other authors early on, and allowed me to build the processes, templates, and skills that I now rely on to provide the services I am blessed to have received so many glowing testimonials for. I am grateful for all of you. It also taught me a lot about what I could do in my own work in order to get exactly the kind of feedback that I wanted and needed on my own novels, which was where the idea for this video series came from. From there, I also started taking notes for myself on the aspects in my clients' manuscripts, which made it harder for me to provide real structural feedback on that piece. So this series was eventually created. I am so excited to finally have a first attempt at this out in the world, despite the very big life things that landed on me at the same time. And I am already looking forward to hopefully running this series again at some point in the future with a bit less mess and a bit more polish. So with that out of the way, let's get into a bit more around your self-editing, your manuscript, and your long-term editing plans. I've done my best to keep things fairly big picture with all of the self-editing steps in this series, as I feel like too often new authors only think about the self-editing process as fixing spelling and punctuation and grammar and that sort of little tiny micro stuff, rather than as a chance to change and improve the story being told with those words. However, the primary goal of this series is to make sure that you are set up for maximum success and value out of getting a macro outside feedback edit or read or whatever it is. So, like a few points in yesterday's video, the last 2 points that I'm going to share with you here today are mostly about helping the written words get out of the way of being able to see the story that they are telling. First up is to check to see if you have introduced any duplication through your editing. This might be whole scenes. This might be partial scene fragments that you rearranged or shifted and may have missed that something is now in there twice, or a newer version is in there with the old version, things like that. It might be particularly memorable descriptions, it might be lines of dialogue, or anything else that you intended to only include once, but through the messiness that is self-editing, got duplicated. You just want to go in and make sure that you've deleted one of them, and preferably if there's two different versions, like I said, a newer version and an older version, that you're deleting the older version. Unfortunately, there's no particularly usable way to do this, as the software programs like ProWriting 8, which I recommend, that have functions to check echoes and repeats and stuff like that, often can only handle a couple thousand words at a time. So you typically only want to be putting one chapter through them at a time. And that isn't particularly helpful if you're trying to check for duplicate chapters or duplicate scene fragments, the larger stuff like that, that might be more spread out. So essentially, just try to pay attention to that particular uh, awareness, watching for duplication on one of your reads, reading through your own manuscript. And I particularly recommend watching out for it when you are listening to it in some way, whether that's using text to speech software or reading it out loud to yourself. The ear is better at catching duplication like that or repetitiveness than the eyes are. Second, you should do some basic formatting on your manuscript. During drafting and self-editing, absolutely use whatever font size, line spacing, and organization you want. I personally love drafting in Comic Sans. I don't know why. It makes my brain happy. And then I'll change it with each edit so that my brain is connecting with it in a fresher way. But take 15 minutes to switch all of that to industry standard before asking someone else to read it. It's mostly a courtesy thing, but again, you're wanting to get the line level writing out of the way so that the reader is not thinking about that and is just consuming the story that you are telling at this stage. Most editors, some beta groups or critique groups will have their own guidelines, but here are some default assumptions that you can easily make and adjust as needed if someone has a different requirement. Your font should be Times New Roman, 12-point font size, double spaced with the first line of each paragraph hanging. And on this one, I will add the caveat that you do not want to do that with a tab key. You want to select all on a Mac that is Command A, select all, go to formatting up in your bar, go down to paragraph, and in those settings, select first line hanging. That's the correct way to do that rather than using a tab. Some editors get really, really annoyed about that. And then let's see here. A page break at the beginning of each chapter. This helps with organization and it reading smoothly. And making sure that your scene breaks are all the same symbol. Typically, it's either a single hash or three asterisks, and that should always be center aligned with a paragraph break above and below it to separate the two scenes that you are breaking with that. One thing that I don't see in many official guides, because everything else I've mentioned on formatting can easily be Googled, is that you should really have a number in your chapter headings at this stage, regardless of whether or not you intend to use numbers or chapter names or a combination in the published work. If you don't have numbers associated with your chapters at this stage, at the beta reader or developmental editor stage, that's going to create a bit more frustration for them as they try to keep track of where they are and how they are giving the notes back to you in a way that you can match where they go. Again, all of this is just to make your readers and your editors' life easier. So those are the last 2 points for this series. Head out into the world with your manuscript and be proud and emboldened that you are doing way better and you are way better prepared by following the steps that I've outlined in this video than many, many, many people in the same position that you are. All of this, I've got over 30 points of advice across the 5 recorded videos and now this live webinar, are less than a tenth of my full editing list that I now use in checking my own work before getting outside feedback, and the list that's very similar but some slight differences that I use when I am working with any of my developmental editing clients. So while this covers the big stuff and lots of big stuff, I just want to make it clear that this isn't the be all end all. If you're writing for yourself, maybe this is enough. If you've gotten the story to where you want it to be, to where you love it, and that's your primary, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Priority, then great, you're done. But I want to make it clear that this video series is designed to help you get the things done where if you haven't done them, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be in your way getting outside feedback. This is not designed to be a replacement for significant full self-editing and beta feedback, or to replace both of those or to add to both of those a developmental edit. That would be a weeks-long video series, which I might do in the future, but that's not the purpose of this video series, so I just want to make sure that we are all staying on the same page there. I also want to say that everyone is going to have different strengths and weaknesses and neutral zones in the middle. No two manuscripts that I have ever read or critiqued or worked on or given feedback on have ever had the same things that needed fixing with no exception, or the same strengths or the same things that maybe just doesn't even come up that much, but it isn't even noticeable. So your manuscript is going to have different needs than anyone else's. And it's a bit of a red flag for me, so I'll pass this on to you. It's a bit of a red flag for me if an editor has a list of like 12 things that they check in a manuscript. If they're just checking a certain number of things, and especially if it's only 12, then your manuscript might have a glaring problem in there that is messing everything up that isn't on their list, and they might not notice it, and they might not even tell you about it, and they probably won't tell you any suggestions for how that could be improved and what that would do to the story to make it stronger. Similarly, if they're only checking about 12 things, your manuscript might have an incredibly strong, beautiful, gorgeous, unique, awesome element that you are nailing. And they might make suggestions that would diminish that, just trying to meet lesser requirements because they aren't watching for that element that you are an expert in without even trying. So they don't notice that it should be named and respected and left as is. All right, moving on. If you would like a ready-made checklist covering everything from this series, I have started putting one together based on everything that I've covered in videos 1 through 5, and I will add in the things that I covered in this webinar. And if you would like to get a copy of that, please feel free to like my page, which is Heartbound Editing, and no, there is no E in heart. It is heart like the female deer. Lots of reasons behind that. I might tell the story sometime. Or join my Facebook group, which is the Heartbound Editing community. As soon as I have that ready and formatted and polished and ready to go, I will be sharing it in those two places. And I'll be sending it out to my email newsletter. If you would like to sign up for that, just go to heartboundediting.com/home, and you can find my newsletter sign up form right at the bottom. Now for the part you have all been waiting for. If you would like to ask any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. I am opening that up now and will answer as many as I can in order. So it doesn't look like I have any questions yet, which I will take as a good sign. If you ask one and I need to clarify anything with you, I will ask you to unmute. Otherwise, please be respectful of everyone in the group and try to keep distracting noise to a minimum. Yeah, so no questions yet. So I will jump into the information about the flash sale, which I am very excited to share with you all. So for 48 hours, any slots on my calendar that you book are 25% off. All of them. This can be any of my developmental editing packages, which I would expect if you've been following this series, but I also offer things like topic expert beta reading, where I can catch any historical inaccuracies or inaccuracies around horses and all things equine. I also have some smaller offerings, like I can draft a blurb for you, having read the whole book, which most blurb writers don't do, and other little things like that. So for 48 hours until, we'll say, roughly Friday evening, if you get fully booked with me, which means we have figured out what dates you want to work with me between now and about September, how as far out as I'm willing to look at the moment. If you get fully booked with me, so you have dates on my calendar and we've signed a contract and I have some idea of what your piece is and you've made your booking payment, then you get 25% off your total purchase. I am really excited to offer this. I hope that it will make a deep, extensive, quality developmental edit accessible to more of you. I think that a developmental edit is the best thing that you can do to your story. And obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I am a developmental editor, but I'm also saying this as an author. As an author, getting a quality developmental edit on my work is the best thing I can possibly do for my own stories. So I want as many of you as possible to have that same experience, which is why I am offering this. So reach out to me on Facebook, reach out to me through my website. You can go ahead and book a discovery call, which is a up to 1 hour Zoom call where you and I hop on and just talk about your piece and talk about the services and answer any questions that you might have. All of this can be done through heartboundediting.com/contact, and I look forward to hearing from you all. All right, we still don't have any questions. I will continue taking that as a win that I have been clear. You can always email me with questions, message my page on Facebook, whatever is most convenient for you. I love talking with authors. You are my people. I am your people. I want to make these connections. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope this was really helpful to you. And if you would like a recording, I haven't really decided yet. I think I'll be posting this into either the event or the Heartbound Editing community group, but it should be accessible. And if you can't find it, just email me and I will find a way to get you access. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope your works in progress, your manuscripts, and your self-editing, present and future, are going really, really well. I wish you all of the future success with your wonderful, wonderful stories, and I will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.